When I first stepped into Fairhaven Preparatory Academy, it didn't feel like any school I'd ever taught in. The architecture was older, far older than a private middle school in rural Vermont had any right to be. The ceilings arched like the interior of a cathedral. The windows were stained glass, not for decoration, but seemingly to contain something inside. And the bell tower didn't have a bell, just a hole. That should have been my first sign. I'm Marcus Wynn, 38, widowed, substitute teacher for hire. I wasn't picky. A paycheck's a paycheck, and private institutions usually paid better, especially ones like Fairhaven, with its Gothic stonework and alumni who probably own small islands. The call came 2 weeks after my last gig, a sudden vacancy. Their history teacher had to leave. The administrator didn't elaborate. I didn't press. I should have. They said the school only needed me for a week, just 5 days, Monday to Friday, and if I lasted until Friday, they'd double my rate. Monday the students were quiet, not unusually so, just off. They spoke in short sentences, stared too long, and blinked too little. Each one wore a strange emblem on their uniform, a black spiral inside a triangle. I assumed it was the school crest, but when I looked closely, it felt wrong. The lines weren't just printed, they were etched into the fabric, charred, like branding. The classroom smelled like old paper, and something else, like damp stone. My first red flag came at 9:13 a.m. All the students stopped moving, at once. No bell, no announcement, just perfect stillness. Then, in eerie unison, they all turned to the window. The blinds were drawn, but I saw shadows pass across them, tall thin shadows, like people, but stretched too long. One had too many arms, another had none. All of them passed in silence. When it was over, the kids turned back and resumed as if nothing had happened. I asked what that was. A girl named Elise answered, "Morning prayers." The watchers passed by. I asked what they were watching. She smiled, but her teeth weren't right. The ones who tried to leave. Tuesday, I found the door to the teacher's lounge, locked. When I asked for the key, the secretary said, "There is no teacher's lounge." I could see it, right behind her, plain as day. So I walked there during lunch, touched the doorknob. It was ice cold, painfully so. When I pressed my ear to the door, I heard something that nearly made me vomit. Chalk scratching, in reverse, and breathing, fast, panicked, trapped breathing. When I blinked, the door was gone, just a blank wall. My classroom changed that day too. The back of the room used to have a map of the world. Now it showed a different map, still labeled Earth, but with different land masses, twisted continents I didn't recognize. One looked like a screaming face, another was shaped like a coiled worm. The ocean had no name, just a phrase, "Not meant for you." Wednesday I decided to dig into the school's past. Fairhaven had no website, no Wikipedia page. The town library had one article from 1921 about a church-school hybrid built by a sect called the Order of the Spiral Tongue, founded by a man named Headmaster Oral. No photo, no death record, just one note from the reporter. None of the children ever made noise. That night, I broke into the school archives. There was no security system, odd for such an elite place. The files were kept in the basement, which shouldn't have unnerved me as much as it did. But the second I stepped into the stairwell, my ears began to ring. Not a high-pitched whine. This was church bells, deep and slow, ringing in a rhythm my brain didn't understand. The archives were lit by old bulbs that flickered without cause. I found hundreds of yearbooks. The earliest ones were in Latin. The photos weren't of children, not really. Things dressed like children, skin too smooth, eyes like wells, fingers bent wrong. Then I found a page that made my blood freeze. Class of 1966, Marcus Wynn, my name, my face. But it couldn't be. I wasn't born until 1986. I ran back to my classroom. All the desks were now turned toward the ceiling, and there, on the ceiling tiles, written in what looked like charcoal, "The tower hears you." Thursday, the students no longer blinked at all. When I entered the room, they were already seated, waiting. Their mouths moved in silent sync, lips forming words I couldn't hear. I saw tongues moving, but the sound was inverted, like I was underwater. They'd drawn something on the whiteboard, a door, with a symbol above it, a triangle with an eye, devoured by the spiral. I asked who drew it. They answered together, "We didn't. The bell drew it. It draws what it sees." I left the room. I needed air. I walked the perimeter of the school, trying to find cell service. Nothing. No signal. No bars. Just a strange icon on my screen. And then I heard it. The bell tower, ringing. It wasn't supposed to. It never had. But now it was. Not like a normal bell. More like a deep throat clearing. Metallic and wet. It rang 4 times, each one hitting my chest like a punch. The last chime left me bleeding from one ear. When I looked up at the tower, I saw a face in the shadows, grinning, upside down. Friday. I didn't want to return. I shouldn't have, but I needed answers. I went back, just before dawn. The front door was unlocked, and the classroom wasn't there anymore. Just a hallway, one I'd never seen. I followed it. It sloped downward, deeper and deeper, until the stone walls gave way to flesh. Pulsing, soft walls with seams, stitched in silver thread. Lights dangled like glowing larvae. The deeper I went, the more I remembered things I never knew. Being born here, learning without language, reading bones, scribing my name into a tooth, instead of paper. Then I came to a door, no handle, just that symbol again. Spiral eye triangle. It opened when I thought my own name. Only, it wasn't Marcus Wynne anymore. It was something older. I walked inside, and there they were. The teachers, not human, not entirely. Pale robes, faces hidden behind cracked chalk masks. They moved like wind across stone, and behind them stood Headmaster Oral, exactly as he looked in the photo I never saw. He hadn't aged a day. He smiled. "You're early," he said. I asked what this place was. He opened his arms, gesturing to the veined walls, the flickering darkness. School, of course. Education, the original form, before ink, before fire, before bone even knew its name. I tried to leave, but the walls had already rewritten. Now they pulsed with my handwriting. I will not forget the lessons. I will not look at the bell. I will not teach what I do not know. They chanted behind me, children's voices, teachers' voices, my own, rising, falling, then rising again. Now I don't know how long I've been here. I still wear the suit I came in with, still carry my notebook, but the pages don't obey me anymore. They write themselves, lesson plans in languages no one speaks, spiral diagrams of the mind turned inside out. Sometimes I'm in a classroom, sometimes a hallway, sometimes the bell tower, where I am the bell, and I ring when someone new enters the school, when someone like you reads this. Because you are reading this, aren't you? And now you feel that tension in the air, that pressure behind your ears. That's the tower hearing you. Saturday. I'm not sure how much time has passed. Time doesn't exist here in the way it used to. The days blur together in a perpetual haze of flickering lights, whispers, and half-formed thoughts. I wake up to the sound of footsteps now. They echo down the hallways, just before the bell rings. I never know if it's the students or the teachers, but it's always the same rhythm, slow, deliberate, as if they're walking to a place they've been before. The walls shift constantly. Sometimes they're made of stone, sometimes flesh, sometimes the very air seems to be fading, like it's losing its consistency, its form. It's becoming something else, something I can't touch or even truly perceive. The school is everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Sometimes I hear my name called, Marcus, Marcus, come and teach. But it's not my voice, not really. It's the walls, the space, the very fabric of this place calling me back. The students too, I see them in the hallways when I pass. They don't move now, not in the way people do. They stand there, still, eyes locked onto me. They don't speak unless I initiate the conversation, but when they do, it's always the same question. Do you know why you're here? I tell them I don't know. They smile. It's a smile that's too wide, too unnerving. one that doesn't belong on a child's face. You're here to learn. I never ask what that means. I don't want to know. Sunday, the library has become my sanctuary, a place where I can hide from the growing madness that surrounds me. The books, though, they're not normal. They were never normal. Every text here seems to have been written in a language I don't recognize. Symbols, runes, and diagrams. There are books that hum, books that whisper, books that scream if you open them to the wrong page. But one book stands out. It's the oldest one, bound in cracked leather. When I first found it, it wasn't on the shelf. It was on a pedestal, as if waiting for me. The title is a series of symbols that I couldn't read at first, but once I opened it, the words began to make sense. They flowed across the pages like water, like a language I've always known. The bell tower, the spiral, the watchers, the children who never leave. It all clicked. This place, this school, it's not just a building, it's a trap. It was never meant to teach. It was never meant to educate. It was meant to preserve. It traps souls, identities, and memories. It gathers them over the years. The students aren't here to learn. They're here to be consumed. Each generation of children serves a purpose. They are indoctrinated, bound by the spiral, their minds twisted, and their spirits siphoned into the school's walls, where they will remain forever. There are more of us, people who have come and gone, teachers who've taught the same classes over and over again, each time forgetting more of themselves. And the worst part, they don't even know they're trapped. The bell, it doesn't just mark time, it marks the beginning, the awakening. Monday, again I tried to leave this morning. I really did. I thought if I found the exit, I could walk through the gates, and the world outside would be just like it was before. But when I reached the main doors, they wouldn't open, not because they were locked, but because there was no door anymore. There was nothing. The space was empty, like the door had never existed. And then the bell rang. But this time, it wasn't just a sound, it was a presence, a weight, pressing down on me, like a hand on my chest. It reverberated inside my bones, inside my mind. The bell tower had no bell, it had never had one. The ringing was the sound of the school itself, waking up, calling out to something greater, something older. I ran, but I could hear footsteps behind me. They weren't mine. The watchers, I saw them again, in the hallways. The watchers, tall, thin, with too many arms, too many legs, but no faces. Their bodies twisted and writhed, as if made of shifting shadows, moving through the walls, as if they were part of the structure itself. And I could hear them. You are close, Marcus, so close. They don't speak like the students or the teachers, they speak like the stone, like the earth itself. I turned a corner, and one of them stepped in front of me. It reached out with a hand that was too many fingers long, and as it did, I saw its arm elongate, stretching impossibly long, like something alive, like a vine, reaching out to grab hold. I stumbled back, but it didn't grab me. It didn't need to. It simply gestured for me to follow, and I did. I don't know why I did, but I did. I followed the watcher through the halls, through corridors I had never seen before. We passed through classrooms where the walls were alive, throbbing with heat and sound. We passed through rooms of nothing, voids where the air felt wrong. And then finally, we arrived at the bell tower. The bell tower, it was a void, an endless expanse of darkness where the only light came from the glowing symbols etched into the walls. The tower was a spire, rising up into the blackness, higher than any bell tower should go. The watcher pushed me forward, and I stepped onto a platform. No, a staircase that spiraled upward. My feet felt like they were sinking into the steps, as if they were alive, pulling at me, trying to drag me into the dark. And I heard it, the bell inside me. I looked down, and I saw the spiral tattooed on my arm, just like all the other students. Just like all the teachers, I had become part of it. The watcher's voice was deep and echoing, not from its mouth, but from everywhere. You've learned, Marcus. You've become one with us. I reached out to grab the wall, but my hand sank into it. It felt like flesh, like the wall itself was alive, feeding on me, feeding on my memories. The watcher smiled. You are the bell now. You ring for those who come after you. Now, I don't know when it happened. I don't know if it's still Monday, or if it's been a week, or a year. But I know one thing. I am the bell. I am the beginning. And when you hear it ring, when the bell tolls in your mind, and you can't shake it, you'll know that it's already too late. You'll be here, forever, and the bell tower will always call.
Run.
Tuesday, the false dawn.
I thought I had escaped.
I thought the visions of the bell tower, the watchers, the endless halls, those twisted wretched memories, were just remnants of a fever dream, that I had somehow broken free from whatever hold Fairhaven had on me. But the second I woke up that morning, I knew something was wrong. The sunlight was wrong. I had been awake for hours, had I? Yet it felt like I hadn't moved in days. I was lying in an unfamiliar bed, sheets too crisp, room too neat. The room itself didn't even seem familiar. This wasn't the teacher's lounge, or even a student dormitory. This was a hospital room. The sterile white walls, the beeping monitors, the soft hum of machinery, it all felt too perfect, too clean. I reached for my head, and felt the bandages wrapped around it, a faint pressure that reminded me of the darkness that had been pressing on my skull. What was happening? A nurse entered, her expression as cold and detached as a porcelain doll. "You're awake," she said, her voice soft yet somehow commanding. She didn't need to ask how I was feeling. She already knew. "How are you?" I didn't answer immediately. My throat felt dry, as if I hadn't spoken in years. "What happened?" I rasped, barely able to remember what had happened the night before. She didn't reply at first. She just stood there, watching me, and then, like the switch of a broken television, her expression flickered. "You're safe now, Marcus," she said, a small smile stretching across her lips. "You've been asleep for 3 days. The school, it's not like it used to be anymore." Her words should have been reassuring, but they weren't. They made my heart pound harder in my chest. "The school?" What did she mean? "You can go home now," she continued, still smiling. "You've been released. All the necessary paperwork is already taken care of." But the walls seemed to close in. The air became thick, heavy, almost suffocating. And then, the bell, not the one from the tower. It was the sound that filled my mind, a ringing, deep and resonant, something that shook me down to my very bones. The ringing was now inside me, reverberating in my skull, like an echo that had been buried and forgotten for far too long. I felt a sudden urge to get out of bed. I stumbled to my feet, but the nurse was already blocking my way. I started to speak, but the words wouldn't come. My mouth was dry. "Marcus," she said softly, her smile never wavering. "The doors are always open for you. But remember, you don't have to go through them again. You don't have to face them." I didn't understand what she meant. She reached into the drawer beside my bed, pulling out something wrapped in linen. She unwrapped it slowly, as if savoring the moment. When the cloth fell away, it was a key, an ornate, black metal key, with a spiraling pattern engraved into its surface. "The school wants you to come back," she said, her voice lower now, almost a whisper. "The question is, do you want to return?" I looked at the key in her hand, at the gleaming black spiral etched onto it. The spiral, the same symbol that had been on my arm, on every student's uniform. No, I could barely breathe, my heart pounding in my chest. The hallway that never ends. I bolted past her, ignoring her pleas. I had to get out, but as soon as I reached the door, I froze. It wasn't the hospital exit. It was a hallway, the same hallway from the school. The walls weren't white and clean anymore. No, they were cracked, peeling. The very walls themselves seemed to breathe, undulating as if they were alive. I wasn't in a hospital. I wasn't even outside. I was still in the school. I looked back at the nurse, but she was gone. She had vanished, leaving only the hallway, stretching on and on, a corridor without end. I couldn't go back, but I had no choice. My feet moved of their own accord. I walked through the hallway, as if guided by something that wasn't mine. Every step felt like it was pulling me deeper into the school, deeper into something I couldn't see. The ringing had stopped for now, but I could still feel it. beneath my skin, in the pit of my stomach, at the back of my mind. And then I heard it, the click, the sound of a door closing behind me. I turned and saw nothing but more hallway, no exits, no windows. The key in my pocket was burning, hot. I could feel the spiral symbol moving, shifting, almost alive against my skin. It wanted me to use it, but I was afraid of what I would find. The door that wasn't there eventually. The hallway opened up to a door that shouldn't have been there. Not in this world, not in this place. The spiral door, the key slid into the lock without effort, and when I turned it, the door creaked open, revealing a dark void. Not a classroom, not a hall, not anything recognizable, just blackness. I took a step forward, and the air around me changed. The temperature dropped, and my breath fogged in front of me. I didn't want to step inside, but there was something calling me, something I couldn't ignore. And then I heard it. The voice, familiar, but wrong. It was Elise, the student from earlier in the week. Her voice echoed through the dark. "Welcome back, Marcus," she said, her voice dripping with something sinister. "We've been waiting for you." I turned around, but the door had already closed behind me. I was locked in. Elise appeared in front of me, but she didn't look like a student anymore. Her body was twisted, distorted, her face almost featureless, except for the black spiral where her eyes should be. Her mouth was stretched into an unnatural grin, far too wide for her face, revealing rows of teeth that weren't human. "You were never meant to leave," she whispered, stepping closer, her limbs twitching unnervingly. "You're part of the school now, just like us." I backed away, but the darkness around me pressed in, suffocating me, trapping me. The walls of the void began to shift. Shapes appeared, coming to life. Long, writhing shadows, figures in robes, figures with empty faces. They circled me. "We have been waiting," they said in unison, their voices a cacophony of whispers. "We were always here, always watching, and now, you will be one of us." I tried to scream, but no sound came. The darkness was swallowing me whole, and that was when I understood. The school had never released me. It had only pulled me back. I wasn't leaving. I would never leave. I had become one of them. You were never the teacher, Marcus. You were the lesson, the revelation. The void consumed everything. I was floating, no, dangling, like a puppet with invisible strings. My memories began unraveling. The ringing in my skull became a scream, not mine. 1,000 voices all overlapping. Some of them were mine, from other lifetimes. Some were not. I remembered more than I should have. I remembered standing at the front of a class, yes, but I also remembered sitting in the desks, many times. Different lives, different names. Marcus was just one of them. It came flooding back like a dam breaking. Every iteration of me had ended here. Every life that had entered the school. Teacher, janitor, visitor, student, they had all followed the same spiral inward. I had been here before. I had never left, and each time, the school erased what didn't serve the narrative. A narrative designed not to teach, but to feed. I wasn't trapped in a haunted building. I was caught in a ritual, an eternal performance for the room beyond the tower, in the deepest part of the school, beyond even the void. I found a final room. No wall, just floor and sky. A vast flat plane of black stone beneath a starless ceiling, and in the center, a classroom, desks in neat rows, a blackboard that rippled like water, and a figure sitting at every desk. They weren't people. Not exactly. They were versions of me. Hundreds of them, thousands. Some wore my face. Some were twisted, half-melted. Some wept silently. Others stared straight ahead with blank, lidless eyes. All of them sat in perfect posture, facing toward a single object. A teacher's desk. Atop it, a single pulsing eye, suspended in the air above the wood, watching, judging. It blinked once, and when it did, my knees buckled. Then a voice boomed, not out loud, but inside my thoughts. "The lesson is never for the students. The classroom exists to observe the teacher." The final grading. I fell to my knees. I tried to speak, but my mouth was filled with ink, thick, oily ink that dripped from my lips. Like melted thought, the eye stared through me, and I felt it probing, not just my mind, but my sub-flashes of every decision I made, every lie I told, every memory I doubted. You believed you were guiding them, but you were tested. Every action you took was part of your evaluation. The bell tower had been watching me the whole time. It was never sounding an alarm. It was grading me, and the final verdict was in. I heard the voices again, the children, the watchers, the nurse, even Elise. And no, I realized they weren't speaking for themselves. They were all projections, voices of the true students, the ones who exist outside our dimension. They take form in this place to observe humanity, to watch how we think, how we break, how we cling to logic in the face of the impossible. And they do it through this ritual of education, through school, through us. And I had failed. The new roll, the floor opened beneath me, and I dropped like a stone through space. I landed hard on cold tile. When I looked up, I was no longer in the void. I was in a normal classroom again. Chalkboard windows, a soft breeze from outside. Except the children who sat before me weren't human. They wore skin-like costumes, mismatched, stitched at the seams, their heads turned in perfect synchronization, and each one wore my face, but frozen in different expressions: fear, anger, curiosity, madness. And in the back of the room, I saw it, a mirror. I walked to it, slowly, heart pounding, and what I saw, I was wearing the teacher's robe, the same one I had seen Headmaster Allroll wear, and behind me, floating in the air where the flag usually hung, the eye, open, unblinking, watching. No, Marcus, it whispered behind me. Begin the lesson. Marcus was never a visitor to the school. He was bred by it, grown in its spiral curriculum. His past, constructed, his memories, fabricated. He was a test subject, placed into the role of teacher, to observe his reactions under stress, fear, and collapse. And no, after endless cycles of failure, the eye has found its perfect instructor. Marcus will now teach the next generation of fabricated minds until they break. And when they do, the bell will ring again, for you.